Hi, today's June 26th, 2017. Welcome to the newsletter. I'm back to doing a few videos to go along with our newsletters. So as all of you are probably aware, July 1st, we were going to have a government shutdown because we hadn't finished work on the operating budget. That's the departments of state government. But hooray, we were successful in doing that, and so we averted a government shutdown. Now, I got a lot of emails from folks saying, oh, let government shut down, we'll learn what's really needed. Well, we already know what's really needed. We need the Department of Fish and Game that's out there managing those resources and enforcing our fishing laws and issuing permits, right? We know we need the Department of Vital Statistics, which issues marriage licenses, because if government had shut down, we would have lost that ability. We certainly need the Department of Motor Vehicles. So the Senate was focused on passing the operating budget. Senate leaders went to the governor and said, please refine the call, the agenda for this special session to be only the operating budget. The governor agreed with us and did that, and on June 22nd, the House joined the Senate in passing an operating budget, averting a government shutdown. You know, it's interesting to know that New Hampshire passed their operating budget that day also. Their operating budget was $4.2 billion. Ours, in unrestricted general funds, is $4.1 billion. They have a much larger population than we do, but of course, we have a larger geographic area. The good news about this operating budget is that it fully funds K through 12 education. So in the operating budget, the Senate went in with the goal of reducing state spending by $300 million in unrestricted general funds. We didn't quite make that. As many of you know, when you talk about a budget, you have to talk about compromise at the end of the day. So the actual reduction in unrestricted general funds was $179 million. We were able to preserve the permanent fund dividend at $1,100 for this coming year. We are funding out of our constitutional budget reserve to meet the revenue shortfall that the state is experiencing. So $2.4 billion will come out of the constitutional budget reserve. Now, some folks are saying, well, you should have taken that out of the earnings reserve account of the permanent fund. The reason we did not, the House had proposed that, in fact, taking about 50%, nearly 50% of that earnings reserve account. The reason the Senate did not agree to do that is that earnings reserve account of the permanent fund makes about 15% in interest this last year. The constitutional budget reserve only makes about 2% interest. So you can see the value of that ERA savings account is much higher. In fact, by using the constitutional budget reserve, the Senate actually saves about $700 million in interest earnings. I know that some folks are upset that the Senate didn't make the $300 million in unrestricted general fund reductions. And I understand that. But remember, this is compromise. At the end of the day, the Senate has to compromise with the House. And the House came a long way. They had actually an increase in the budget. So they compromised a long way. And I appreciate that. There is still a reduction to government departments. But we are increasing the number of state troopers. We know that public safety is an issue. We also are preserving the Pioneer homes. You might have heard some talking about that. The Pioneer home funding is preserved. You know, one of the things that I heard a lot about was funding for K-12 education. We have fully funded K-12 education. I know that there are folks that believe that the state legislature was responsible for pink slips going out to teachers. And in fact, that isn't true. If you've written me an email, you've probably got a return comment from me to that effect. What the state government does is it funds the schools, sends the money to the school districts, and then the school boards themselves determine how they want to use that money. So school boards decide whether they'll lay off teachers or not hire as many middle managers. So we call that local control. There is some important intent language in the operating budget, and that relates to cash credits to oil companies. The intent language says, it is the intention of the legislature to stop paying cash credits to oil companies going forward. So I wanted you to know that particularly. It does include $57 million to pay the cash credit debt that we've already accrued. The law actually provided for about $90 million this year. The legislature reduced that amount to only $57 million. So a couple other things that were accomplished this last legislative session that I know impact folks every day. One is the ride-sharing bill that was passed. So now Uber and Lyft and other operations like that can function here in our state. So that's good news. We also managed to pass the opioid bill. So the House didn't pass it in the first special session, but they did shortly after we convened the second special session. This is an important bill. We have a significant misuse of drugs going on in our state, of prescription drugs. And what we're calling the opioid bill helps address that. Not only with advising people who prescribe these medications to prescribe less, education requirements and things like that, but also treatment programs for folks who inadvertently became hooked on a prescription pain medication. So that's a really important thing. We are celebrating 40 years of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline's operation because of oil on the North Slope and that Trans-Alaska Pipeline. We have a permanent fund, and it has been spinning off dividends now for 40 years. We're all very grateful for that, and I want to see TAPS, that pipeline, continue to function for many more years. We've made significant discoveries of more oil on the North Slope. We don't believe we've hit peak oil yet, and so that's really positive news. As you're driving around, of course, I think you're all aware of road construction going on. That makes me think about the capital budget. The capital budget is the budget that funds developments like road construction, state buildings, things like that, deferred maintenance issues. We have not passed a capital budget yet. Those capital budget funds leverage federal money, especially by the Department of Transportation, these road projects. Typically, the state of Alaska pays about 10% of the cost of a road project, and federal funds cover the other 90%. So you can see it's a big deal. The capital budget will still need to be addressed in the coming months, hopefully before September. And last of all, bears. I know you've been seeing a lot in the news. We've had some very serious and very, very sad, horrible accidents, people losing their lives because of bears. So please be aware of them as you're traveling. You know, bear spray is always a good idea to have with you. So thanks so much for watching this newsletter. I'll see you again soon.